Banky, do you want to tell the audience about the conversation that we had?
Okay, I don't mind. I don't mind saying it. Look, he can remove it if he wants. I think Milchek is a man who, first of all, his fits are always insane. This man knows how to dress. And then
he's a black man in
who,
corporate. He has to know how to dress.
Yeah, but he's also a man who never shies away from doing the extravagant. Well, by the way, this is not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, how many pride parades has Milchek been to? I just feel like there is no, like, it's so clear that this is a man who knows the finer things in life. He knows how to. This man, he knows how to enjoy himself. That's what I'm saying. That this is a man that.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying. Let's go home and see Milchek's husband. That's all I'm asking. I just feel like this guy's life is a very colorful, entertaining life.
Just like saw like 5 seconds ago when I clocked what you were saying before you said it.
Banky saw the steez in the Oddball episode and said, nope. I was like,
no straight man has this fits. No straight man can pull off these routines as well as this guy does. I'm just sorry. Speaking as for all straight men, we just don't have it. Do you see what he's wearing at the Oddball? Like, we can't pull that off. I'm sorry.
#drip.
Yeah, it's just like do you see his dance with the CNM? I was speaking for all straight men. We just don't have it in us. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Let's give the credit where the credit is due.
Hello, and welcome to The Aftermath, as well as the board meeting you had no idea you needed. My name is Ebube, and you are listening to Popcorn for Dinner. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking Severance again, but we're going to be evaluating all of its flaws, all of its good moves, everything we enjoyed, and everything we wish it did, and also everything we're looking forward to for the new season. Season 2 was explosive. We had a lot of fun covering it, and we want to think about where the story can go from here, what we want to happen, and we've included some new voices. Chinedu is here with me once again, and I know he's still recovering from last week. I'm still recovering from last week, but I'm doing it silently because that's what we do in the culture of this company, Lumen. However, we have someone a bit more vocal with us today. Bankole is joining us because he had a lot to say. The internet was annoying him, and sometimes he likes to rant about that. So please join me in welcoming the producer roundtable. How guys? How you doing?
I'm good. Banky, this is the first pod we're having where we're not therapizing.
Oh, wait, it's still time.
We might still therapize. In fact, this is a very therapeutic combo. I don't think we've ever done this combo before. So who knows where this will go.
This is just to be very quick because I heard that CNM have a space open for a band leader that I'm trying to apply for. So I had there was a coup against the last word. So
drum majors are this is a very demanding role. But I think
the requirement apparently is just tall and black. So I'm just trying to see if maybe I can make it work.
Of course, Banky tells us he's tall. Any opportunity he will take.
You know what? A win is a win. You got to take what you get. you got to use your assets. But okay, guys. This season was a lot. We waited a long time for it. Like I literally remember it was like it kind of feels like a different time in my life when this show first came out. Mm-hmm. We're talking literally 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so much has happened since then. Like, we literally had the world transitioning out of COVID. We had the writers' strike. We've had changes in government. We've had literal seasonal madness and movements. Sports teams are no longer the same. Like literally we are living in a different world than the one that existed when Severance season 1 came out. So I guess the first question I'll ask is, was the wait worth it? Did we actually get something that was worth waiting 3 years for? Because as it turns out, these days, TV shows don't seem to think that's a requirement.
Imagine if I was just like, nah, it was terrible. Waste of time.
I would ask you why.
Nah, it was a great season, in my opinion. Enjoyed it. I'm of the firm opinion of just let people like cook, man. I'm always pro creator. Just let them do what they're doing. Like sometimes it takes a while, Sometimes people are going through things. Like no one is actively like saying, I don't want to bring out the show. So just like, I get it. It can be frustrating, obviously. I'm not saying it can be, but like sometimes just like, let them do their stuff. So here we are. We're always better than this, than them rushing. And then we're like, nah, this show is
like, what is going on here?
Yeah, go back to the drawing board. So yeah, no, enjoyed the season.
Yeah, I was gonna say same as well. It was good. It was definitely good. We got some pretty good highs of the season. I'm sure we're going to elaborate it in more detail, obviously the finale but the 3 years, I would say it was worth the wait. 100% from me. Yeah, I don't really have much complaints, to be very honest with you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, I liked just the weekly drop that we got. I know Banky is smiling deep inside, but
there you go. Come on to this side.
I'm smiling deep outside because that is a culture of TV that we need to bring back. Like,
yeah, I mean, it would be frustrating to have to wait 3 years for a TV show and then it drops in the binge format. I think just having that weekly drop was really good for us as an audience to really, really get into it and just have that discussion going week on week.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this before on this podcast and even off the podcasts. Like, that's how you build the culture of a show. That's how something becomes, seminal. That's how something gets into the zeitgeist. And I think we might actually be at a point now where Severance has earned its spot as required viewing. Like, I feel like TV heads will recommend stuff like Succession. They'll recommend Breaking Bad. They'll recommend the stuff that we consider stories that truly challenge the audience and provide something worthwhile. People will even still recommend things like Game of Thrones. House of the Dragon, despite some of its flaws, is literally still riding on those coattails. And I think Severance is now kind of in that same class. Severance is now a show that people, like not even TV heads, like regular people are like, you need to watch this show. And that's a good thing. That says a lot.
I even think it's more like quote unquote regular people than TV heads, to be honest, which is like,
yeah,
when
that's
you
a
look
huge
online,
testament to what they've done.
I'll still recommend it, just not to my father, because I recommended Paradise to him, but he was like, this is too much sci-fi. And I was, nigga, there's like 1% sci-fi in this show. Like, this is like the lowest form of sci-fi you could ever get away with. I was like, just don't be a Nigerian father for 1 second. I'm just like, this is mostly action. So if he can't do Paradise, there's no way he's doing Severance. But then, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's one of those, like, covering TV, as we've done over the last 3 years, you can kind of gauge when a show is about to take that leap. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what side you fall on, once you start seeing fan cams, once you start seeing TikTok edits, then like the show is ready. It happened with industry last season. It's just like, once that side of the internet gets onto the show, then it's about, obviously I'm not saying it's automatically become like, the thing about Netflix is that Netflix, you might forget about Netflix show after 10 days, but if a show hits, those 10 days could be ridiculous, right? Like, it's like Adolescence Right Now, or even if a Netflix show hits, it really hits. You might forget about it after 2 weeks, but like when it hits,
they want you to forget about it after 2 weeks so that you can be tuned to whatever they brought next.
Exactly. So I'm not saying like Severance or even industry hit those highs, but like you can clearly tell, like, I mean, this Severance became Apple TV's biggest show this run.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, like, I think it's overtaking Ted Lasso. That's insane.
Because Apple TV, we're not trying to promote their shows. They've learned now, sure. But like, it's like, that's the thing. Even industry is obviously the show that has obviously grown year on year. So it's like, once that side of the internet catches onto your show and they want to do their fan cams and edits of it, then the show is ready to take a leap. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this has really helped its popularity, definitely.
Chinedu, you are in a unique position because you're one of the few people on God's given internet who have a chance to react immediately to the finale and then come back a week later to be like, okay, what actually happened? So have any of your thoughts changed? Have any of your feelings changed? Are you seeing more that maybe you didn't realize the first time? Like, how big was this really?
I do think I've reflected a lot more than obviously an immediate reaction. I sat down And
You've
But
contemplated your life.
Fair enough.
For those of us
Spiritual
who are only
experience.
listening in via the audio, but yeah, just put my two hands together, clasped in a very thoughtful position,
Yeah, and we're all
serene,
wearing
mindful,
black. This is very
meditating
serious.
position. Yeah. So, but I heard that I am giving anti-Innie vibes, so I would like to just
Wow.
put it out to the world that I am very pro Innie, please.
They said you're against the workforce. Whoever
That's amazing.
said that, shout out to you.
Can you imagine they said I'm for the machine?
I'm just saying, are they wrong? That's what I was gonna. That's what part of my take this episode. Whoever said
Oh my
that, are they
goodness.
wrong?
I was so heartbroken. I said I must jump on this episode to clear my name. Oh my goodness. Anyways,
my God.
please, first of all, I am pro Innie, which is why I was always anti reintegration, because they are a life that needs to be protected. But no, jokes apart, I think reacting to the finale and just the show overall, I've come away from it. I was a bit upset at the ending just because it was not my personal preference, because I think I'd just like to clarify that my personal preference wasn't out of me just, being this TV viewer that's so demanding. I'd like to say it's an ode to the writers of how well they did, because they've written Gemma and Mark's relationship so beautifully that I was rooting for it that much. And then I've come away from this thinking they've actually written Mark and Helly also beautifully as well, because they also have people who have really bought into this relationship. And also just the fact that Mark has seen himself, or Mark S has seen himself grow in terms of his self-worth. I saw something from Dan Erickson in an interview where he said that he Mark at the start was, running for Miss Casey, and then at the end he's going after Gemma. So if you, put those parallels against each other, you can see that at the start he's not, chasing what is valued to him, but at the end we see that he starts to realize, what matters to him, what matters to his life. And I love that. I love that interpretation. And I think this show is something that you need to watch, multiple times to, and there's always things that you always learn and you always gain from. So yeah, I've come away from it just, really on my feet applauding, like kudos, man. But yeah, I think I've been in I've respected what they've done so much more, and I already did a lot if you listened to me before. So yeah.
This is a few years ago now, but there was a time Chance the Rapper tweeted something, and then I can't remember what it was about, and then Terry Crews was supporting him, and then Chance replied like, "Guys, never mind, I've changed my opinion. If Terry Crews is supporting me, then I can't be on the right side." This was when Terry Crews was in the Kune phase. And that just reminds, that was like Chinedu was like, he had his thoughts, then the episode came out, and then he saw this Stan account. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, fuck." Like, he was like, he looked around and was like, "Are we the baddies?"
First of all, no, that's a lie.
I was like, let me reassess.
He
saw the shippers and it was like, wait, are we the Nazis? let me go back.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no. Oh, I just realized you didn't ask a question. Do you want me to say my thoughts on the finale?
I mean, clearly you have some. Go ahead.
No, I mean, without going into, I don't, to disrupt your structure, without going too deep into it, I think when I watched it, I messaged Pete Peppers, friend of the pod. Go check out he also had a follow-up YouTube video on the season. And obviously this was when we had screeners, so this was before that come out. And I was like, "Oh, what did you think?" And then he was talking, he said it was also a bit, I think he said it in his video as well, he was a bit like unsure about the episode. And then he went back and rewatched it and it was like, and I was like, yeah, me too. I was like 90% on board, but 2% of me was off. And I was like, oh, it was the ending. Hold on. And I was like, to me, no, wait, but hold on. So to me, the ending was like, because I think I had gone in with like season 1 finale mind, or even like cliffhanger mind. I was like, okay, maybe they would tell us kind of a cliffhanger or something that's going to happen next season. But this finale really isn't like, obviously it's not like there's more to the story, but it's a pretty final like ending. Like obviously there's a clear way to
It is a
conclude the
cliffhanger,
story.
but there's like completion.
Yeah, like it's like, I think they've compared it to The Graduate, like that sort of thing where like you think it's a good ending and you think about it for a second, like, wait, no, there's like something quite sinister just literally just around the corner. So but like it's like if the show ended there, if that was the end of the show, it's not like too, it doesn't leave you wanting too much more, if that makes sense. Like I could see the real ending of the show being that kind of place where you don't really fully understand it. Anyway, so that was my thinking. I was like, oh, this is kind of like, I don't know where to go from here. That's what I was a bit kind of confused about. It was until I spoke to Chinedu that I realized that people would have a problem with like him going back with Helly. Because to me, it was logical.
It is the logical conclusion.
Like
it's just not something that people will like that much. But it makes sense that he'd do it.
I think watching TV improves your empathy if you watch TV the right way. Not to sound pretentious, but if you watch TV the right way, your empathy is improved. Like if you watch TV and you actually like listen and care about the lives of people you're watching on screen, your empathy is improved, right? That's just that's why we need representation. But I also think some TV watchers cap their empathy because I'm just like, you are basically saying that, and look, AJ, love you. Thank you for coming on this podcast. Big fan, like everyone else. But that's
don't again.
but that's one place that AJ and I like have like we've butted heads all season, right? Because it's, you are saying that Mark and Gemma is important. 100%, I agree with you. But then you're refusing to give that kind of empathy to Mark S, who's like, this is his life. Helly is his person. Like if Mark Scouts chose Gemma over Helly, I wouldn't be like, Mark Scouts, what are you doing? Like Mark S is, I'm like, it's his job to pick what is best for him. I'm even like, him even sacrificing his life for Gemma was already more than enough. You guys should be thanking him. Like, so he can't have a crumb. He can't have a crumb of happiness. He sacrificed his life to get to your wife. You can
actually see at the very end, like he's making a decision for himself, knowing what the alternative is. Like that's something he's never done before. Yeah.
Like if you go back and watch that thing, it's not only is he thinking about it, he's about to do it. And then when he hears Helly's voice,
he realizes there's more to life.
He plays that scene like, you know, when somebody's about to jump and then somebody pulls them back, where he's like, what was I about to do? So that was how he plays it. He's like, I'm about to kill myself. And then he hears the voice and he's like, oh, like, I can't just kill myself. Like, I deserve that half a life or whatever.
Like, there is more,
There is more. And I just thought, like, this, I mean, earlier in the episode, I told you earlier in the episode, when he's like, what happens to us? And Devon is like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, you guys are not ready.
No, literally. Thank you.
That was a hilarious reaction.
Oh my God.
I was like, what did you guys think was going to happen?
You can't blame Devon though. You can't blame Devon.
No.
Where I would say is Miss Coel should have obviously seen the gravity of what they were asking. Devon is not really part of Lumen. She wouldn't understand the gravity of that.
I don't blame Devon. I'm just saying that it shows how little they were considering what the Innies,
basically.
Yes, like they considered the Innies so expendable. And if you look at the Innies point of view, they are not. This is their life. Like, I thought it was the most obvious thing to, like, honestly, I would have even been angry if Mark S goes out. Because I'm like, you're not only are you not respecting your life, the writers are not respecting your life as an Innie. Like, the writers are saying that you get to just, you're in service of the outie forever. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Somebody should do it. I'm sure somebody has done it on TikTok.
It's just antithetical to the show's message.
Yeah. I think somebody has checked how, I feel like we spent more time with Innie Mark than outie Mark. Somebody should go and do a thing about it.
Stats.
Like, I just feel like, and like, Innie Mark's situation is so much more tragic. I'm sorry. Like, nobody's saying losing your wife is okay, but like, Innie Mark's situation is insane. Like, he's been bred to live this life. Like, I think there's a reason we made all these allusions about slavery and the workforce and everything, because like, I think that's where our allegiances should be. I think as a good TV watcher, you should empathize with everybody, obviously. But I'm saying like, that is not the real struggle, but that is like the main struggle of the show, in my opinion. Is like, this guy's life. Do you know what? You disagree?
I mean, not fully. Like I see what you mean, but then at the same time, you have to realize that this guy's life was created because this company literally manufactured this person's grief, but this
Okay,
this
yeah.
grief didn't exist. This grief was not needed because this woman was
Mhm.
actually alive. And that's the whole point why he is created, because this person could not just cope with the loss of his wife.
Mhm.
And I do believe that I don't know how intentional it probably is, but it highlights the selfishness of us as people.
Mhm.
And I think one question I would ask is, so following on from this, do you think Mark Scouts is selfish for asking that, or do you think he should have at least recognized the gravity of what he was asking? Because
I
I
think the
guess
answer is
for
yes.
him, he's seeing this person, yeah, as kind of a result of his lack of ability to process his grief. So
Mhm.
I think he feels like this is an extension of himself that can empathize with his situation. He doesn't know
Mhm.
what this being an Innie is like. He doesn't know if, there's any form of maybe he even believes that there's a form of connection that he should just naturally have. Because, we have these topics of the does love transcend
Love.
severance.
Mhm.
And so, I guess there's two questions. Like, so if we're having empathy for Mark S, at the same time, we should also look at Max Scouts and what he's had to go through that he never really should have. And at
Mhm.
the same time, yeah, do we think he's, more selfish than, for asking that of Mark S?
Well, I mean, Mark S definitely thinks so, right?
Yeah.
I don't. I think I don't think anybody had it on their bingo card necessarily that Mark S would be like, well, you'd know more about me if you'd ever cared to look, and
I think that was harsh. I'm not gonna lie. I think that part
Yeah,
was
I,
harsh.
I did think it was harsh because you kind of are like the people that create Innies are you said Banky, I've said it so many times what you've said that no normal person ever goes through severance.
Mhm.
Um
nobody who
and
is
these people
okay.
nobody who is okay ever goes through severance. And these people
Yeah,
are created because of their inability to, manage their trauma or grief or whatever.
Or like
Even
Dilla, they just burn out and they need a steady job. It's just like
yeah.
I cannot handle a job.
It's interesting. It's like they have, what one might call spiritual malaise. I heard
yeah,
a wise man recently talk about how people try to run from pain towards pleasure and only find more pain.
More pain.
Go
A
watch The
great
White
monk.
Lotus, everybody.
A great monk said that on the
Yeah.
White Lotus. Sorry, but I cut you off.
I can't remember what I was saying.
No, but to your point, like I should just say this. I think I tweeted after we watched episode 7, the screen, and I was like, look, my only takeaway from this episode is that Lumen's a terrorist institution. We need to burn them to the
Oh,
ground. They are the ultimate villain.
I remember. We
I'm not
said
arguing with
But
this.
What Mark S said was harsh. that's what we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
But
about.
here's
yeah.
the thing: what does
Yeah,
that? What you're saying, burn them to the ground, which makes sense. But it's like, what does that mean for the
Oh, I
Innies?
don't know.
Because
I don't know
that's
how
the
we do
issue.
it.
That's
I
the
don't know
issue,
how we
right?
do it.
And them butting heads like that. I love when a show is able to, create a theme and then show you that it has farther reaching implications that you would have
Mm-hmm.
expected. This idea
yeah.
of Chikai Bardo,
Mhm,
ego death, like
Ego death.
fighting against oneself.
mhm.
Like you think about it in the context of episode 7, but then you realize that all this time behind the scenes has been what's been going on between Mark S and Mark Scout, right?
Mhm.
Something I realized actually a while ago, and this was also funny enough recently stated very well by Esther from Crazy Stupid Podcast, and they've been reviewing Severance season 2 as well. It's that the Innies do not owe the outies anything. Like, in
Mm-hmm.
fact,
No,
on some level,
100%.
they are just as much
100%.
their captors and oppressors as Lumen is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said when we broke down the finale last week, I said this: Mark Scout's failure to understand what he was truly asking Mark S to do was a huge oversight. Like,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
fact that nobody thought that through is just like, okay, well, what happens to us? I could not believe that nobody had an
It's
actual
like,
answer presented for this guy. And funny
yeah.
enough, Esther's co-host, Adrian, like, she also mentioned they mentioned that Dylan was the real MVP of this episode because he was the only one who afforded his any agency at the end of the story, right? So everybody's trying to get something out of their Innies, and nobody is understanding what that means. Like, how did they not realize they're asking this guy to literally give his life? And I like that he said it in those words. You want me to give my life?
Yeah,
like, They are treating him like Mickey 1 through 16. They're like, you can just. That's
switch
Mickey
off.
17.
Yeah,
they're like, you can just go sacrifice your life. That's how. And like, it's like no, this is not a spoiler. This is the point of the film. In Mickey 17, is like this guy's job is to die. Like, they don't treat him like somebody who has his own like agency, like you said. Like, I think that was the thing. I was like, Chidi earlier asked, is Mark Scout being selfish? I think he is, but I also think he's selfish in the way we would all be selfish. I don't think it's a way for me to be like
he said, he says, terrible. I'm just trying to get my wife back.
Yeah,
like, I will do whatever I can for you, but first let's get my wife back.
I think that's,
to be honest, watching that scene back is very painful though. It's very painful because you can see this guy kind of going at this guy, and I understand you're trying to get your wife back, Hook. I mean, come on. Like, you're yelling at him. You should be on your knees. Like, please help me.
He's also manipulative because if you notice, there are points where he flips right before he presses record, and then he flips away because he's trying to get this guy on his side. Like, he's
selling him dreams. This is what I said last week.
He brought up Helly. That was as manipulative as
he brought up Heleny. That was a big mistake.
And then, I find it so funny because
he was kind of on his side a bit. And
then he said that, just like, oh, okay. And that's how you know they're the same guy, because the same thing happened when Helena mentioned Hannah instead of Gemma in episode 6.
But it's
like,
funny,
the guy he took that personally.
Yeah, and everyone is like, oh, it's funny that like they both made a mistake. I can't remember if you guys discussed it on the podcast. Helena did not make a mistake. She intentionally said the wrong name
100%.
to fuck with him, right?
Yeah.
But then,
100%.
But then Mark is making a mistake here, but like it has the same effect. You think about how you felt when Helena said the wrong name. Like, obviously, Mark S is going to feel that way. But yeah, I think he's selfish, but I think he's selfish in a way that we'll all be selfish. But we as the objective TV viewers should be like, I get why Marquez would feel this way. And I'm just we are not giving Marquez enough credit for what he actually did, that he actually saved Gemma. He didn't have to. Like, what would Mark Scout have done if Mark was like, I'm not doing this, or I'm not finishing Code Hub? Like, he did so, and I just feel like, I'm not trying to say Mark Scout is the villain. I'm not saying that, obviously. Like, I just believe, but I think also because I went to you remember we did the live stream ahead of the finale with Pete. And I went into this episode thinking it was going to have quite a dark ending. Like, I was even surprised that we got a Mark and Gemma scene. I genuinely thought we're not going to get that. Like,
I swear we did a death prediction, and I was so sure. Like, if you were a betting man, I was so sure that Gemma was not going to make it.
Yeah, I thought there would be a configuration where it'd be like Miss Casey and Mark Scout and Gemma and Marquez. Like, I just thought we would never actually get the Mark Scout and Gemma arena. So to me, I was already like, oh, we've surpassed my expectations. This is basically like a comedy pilot at this point. I'm just like, well, having fun.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand. Like, and obviously, I'm not going to put it this way. So it doesn't like I'm an equal opportunity hater. All the shippers are wrong. Like, even the Mark and Helly ones that are like, yeah, fuck you, we're correct. Mark and Gemma can go to hell. Like, why are we watching TV like when do we start watching TV like sports?
It's not zero sum.
Like, when do we start watching TV like my team is better than your team? I'm just like, when did this happen?
Bro.
Like, how do we watch TV like normal human beings? But yeah, so I do think it's just, I don't know, it seemed like the natural thing to me, and like there is no reason for us not to be happy that the Innies are choosing their own agency. And like, somebody was like, oh, so you're running back in to do what? To fight idiots. I'm like, yes, that's the whole point. They're like, they want to fight for that crumb of life that they have left. Like
I guess it's a good point you're raising. Like, and it just is good because if you watch season 1, we are very angry for these people. Like, if you watch the scene where Helly R says, tries to say that apology so many times, or when they go into the break room, that anger you felt, it's a great point that you're making, because we should carry that anger to season 2, and we should always still feel that anger. And I think it's probably easy to forget, because this season was more of the Innies trying to rescue themselves. So people weren't seeing Lumen in such a dark light, because I think it was maybe it was easy this season to forget that this is an evil corporation. Like, these people are not, they are terrible. I think obviously when you're watching this show for the first time, so much happens that you're like, oh my God, what is happening here? But because this is happening, I think it's probably easy for people to forget. But I think it's our job probably on this podcast now to just, kind of just reiterate that, like, that anger you felt in season 1, like, you need to bring that energy back in season 2.
Don't cap your empathy because, like, it's going against the ship that you're rooting for. Like, these guys still have their wants and their desires, and they deserve their own life.
Yeah.
Okay, so we definitely feel very deeply about everything that happened to Mark S.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't until I started seeing tweets, and I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I need to say something.
I actually saw on tweets, I guess that this is like an anti-Heli thing, it was just so funny to me. Somebody said something along the lines of like, oh, so you mean to tell me, Ragabi is evil, Gemma doesn't matter, Dylan is suffering, but is the billionaire heiress that gets the happily ever after? And I'm just like, okay.
Look, do we even know if she's an heiress even? Like, our popsy was saying,
bro, they're trying to disinherit her. You're telling me she's an heiress.
The guy is saying he doesn't love her. That guy can remove her name from the will like tomorrow.
Oh my goodness, man. Like, the takes just kept giving. And it actually reminded me of how well the show is doing in terms of building a community. I think one of the major reasons the show works so well is because its primary director, Ben Stiller, he approaches the production as a collaborative project that involves a plethora of creative perspectives. Like, one of my favorite examples of this is actually that opening sequence of season 2. Their decision to pay so much attention to, Mark there, it actually stems from Ben Stiller asking Adam Scott what he felt Mark would do once that elevator opened. Because, of course, this is the first time this guy is waking up since he screamed, "She's alive," which is why, like, if you watch that premiere again, he's literally, like, frantic. He is hyperventilating, and then he just starts running because he's like, okay, I need to go and, she's alive, I need to go and find her, right? So I think with that in mind, and, sort of holding on to that excellent start to the season, because it really was an amazing premiere, how do we feel the actual plot moved through the course of the season? Like, let's think a bit about the, let me say, structure of the narrative now, because people like the season overall, I think, but I feel like there are a few people who feel like the plot sort of dragged, right? Would it be fair to say that everything we saw in these 10 episodes, especially before the Ortbo, was truly consequential? Like, is there stuff that we just didn't need? Like, because obviously in season 1, they did 9 episodes. They had a very tight story. They were like, we don't need to do 10. We know exactly what we want to do. But they didn't take that approach here. Like, in season 2, they wanted to kind of expand things a bit. And that makes sense. But there are some people that wonder if they should have just kept it as 9 episodes. That, for example, the whole Heli is actually Helena twist was something that was easy to catch and was kind of obvious. So why spend time kind of building that up? Why spend time on certain people before the Ortbo even happens? There are people who believe, for example, that the Ortbo, like episode 4, is the real start of the season because that's where we now start to move the plot forward. I don't necessarily agree with that because I think there's a lot of amazing character work and, contextualization that happens before then. I think some people are just salty. But I suppose there might be something to be said for the plot not moving the way it did in season 1, even though I think that it's not trying to be season 1. It's trying to do something new. It's trying to explain things in a way that can prepare us for what's to come. So, yeah, what do you guys feel about that?
I feel like I should answer here before I start sounding like old man screaming at the clouds.
You've already insulted the fan bases.
Yeah, I mean, people that listen to this podcast know I insult people a lot. I'm like, look, this podcast it's not going to do a fraction of like the numbers those tweets do anyway. So like, who are we
Maybe
fighting really?
one day your insults will just catch the flame and
Hopefully. I would say this though. I was speaking to somebody who just watches Severance. Yes, there are people like that. Watches Severance, doesn't listen to podcasts, doesn't read Reddit threads, doesn't just watches the show.
And
And
goes
he
home.
didn't know
Yeah,
that
that's fantastic.
the Heli Alina thing was a surprise to him. Like he hadn't thought about it. He hadn't considered that that was the case. So like we might think that we are not, and more people are like that person and they are like us.
Exactly.
Like just because we are the ones on Twitter and like so for lots of people it would have been a surprise. It would have been worth the thing. And I even still think that for people that thought it was the case, like it happened in the 4th episode. It's not as if they dragged it out
to the
Maybe it
end,
happened in
right?
the 3rd
Yeah.
episode because like we don't see Heli in episode 2. So like
Yeah.
I even want to
Yeah.
understand what they mean by dragged it out, because it's not as if they were spending so much time on her character. They were
Yeah.
trying to
Well, they're
find
saying
Miss
stuff like, for
Casey, which is
example,
the
Milkshake-
natural progression of the story.
Milkshake in episode 2, you know,
Mhm.
showing us the process of them firing everybody, all the stuff that was happening outside, and they're like, oh well, the real story is happening, you know, with the Innies. Why are we spending a whole episode outside? And I'm like, we need to spend an episode
that kind of
outside.
that
Yeah,
doesn't
I
even
mean,
Like, that doesn't even
they
make
had-
sense.
they
That doesn't
literally-
warrant a
They
conversation.
literally at an event announced that the Innies are suffering. Did they just think the writers were going to jump over that and just go
Yeah,
into
like,
the
Yeah, we shouldn't.
I'm
James
not
Bond of
entirely
it all?
sure.
Like, I don't understand.
Not to be rude, but we shouldn't even be talking about that kind of compliment. I mean, look, the legitimate thing is the reintegration thing. I do
Mhm.
think, I think the show should have explained or made it clear in season 1 how long reintegration takes.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
I think they made, or at least the audience thought it was a thing, right? Which obviously is
Snappy
not
thing.
the case, which is what they know, and that's their right. They can have that fact, but they should have let us know because we thought it was immediately that happened.
It's more of a process than a
More
procedure.
of a process. Because he says in the finale, if once we get this done, I will finish it, meaning there are still more stages, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, I think we discussed it on Pete's live stream as well. I was on Pete's live stream after episode 3 and I was like, oh wow, I can't believe they're doing this after the 3rd episode. This is like,
Mhm.
this show is moving at a different pace. The show is different. And then they're like, nah, TV's gonna TV. Like, I'm sorry, but there are just some rules you can't break in TV. Just like some things will happen. And then what they did was like, what they did is actually when you look at it from the 10,000 feet view, is like, it's quite smart because like they changed the way they did it. But it was never going to change the format. It was always going to be
Yeah.
like a season-long thing, just like they did at the beginning, so that they could then kind of like sprinkle in some other things and do the Altpo and do the Coel episode, and even do the flashback episode, as opposed to doing the reintegration in episode 8, for example, which is what
Yeah.
a normal TV. But like, there's just like so like you can't finish reintegration by episode 4 of season 2. But you still have 1.5 or 2 more seasons left to get. So like,
Yeah.
I do think they should have let the show should have let us know from the beginning that this is not a thing that happens instantly. I think audiences thought it was, and that was
Perhaps.
kind of a problem.
I think another dig to the pacing that people were sort of mentioning is the whole thing about like that Coel episode. People are like, that should not have been its own episode. Like, we should probably have been cutting in and out rather than removing Coel for like literally 4 episodes of the season. And then we get the shortest episode in the show's history, focusing on what happens, and we only really get maybe 15 minutes of those 37 minutes that actually move the story forward. But
I don't know. I like that
I feel like
Coel
it's fine.
episode.
I like the episode.
Yeah,
so
because I feel if those scenes were put into other episodes, people would have said they were useless.
they would have
anyways, I
felt
think.
weird. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Um,
Like, I'm always an advocate of, and maybe this is just because of the way that I approach stories. I
Mhm.
think character is, in most stories, the most important thing. So when you can enrich the audience's understanding of a character, you can actually, it's like it pays dividends, essentially. It's a real
Yeah.
investment, because there's
Yeah.
so much you're going to be able to do later that relies on this context that people now have of the person they're watching. I mean, Bankole, do you agree?
I agree, yeah, but just something just hit me as we were talking, and I think you might like this. Because I see the point with the Coel. This is one criticism I actually do see the point with the Coel thing. Obviously, I like it as well. I think every scene should have been in the story, but maybe like editing in an episode. But I was thinking, if they put it into different episodes, it would have ended up being Damon's arc in House of Dragons season 2.
Exactly.
And which people are like, why do we keep seeing these Damon scenes? What's the point? And I was like, So you have to pick your poison. Which one do you want?
Which one do you
Yeah.
do you want the drip feed or do you want the shots?
Exactly. Because I do think everything, like, people are like, oh God. The problem with covering TV shows on the podcast and having to see all these tweets, that you see all the tweets, man. People are like, oh, so what's the point about Miss Huang? I'm like, they've told, do you want them to actually like explain it word for word? Like, it's there between Coel's episode. They've told you about Miss Huang. We know her story. Like, it's like, so I think the Coel thing was obviously very important. I think the fact that she created Severance explains so much about her character and her motivations. Like, oh, this is why she's this
and
involved.
And as you just said, it contextualizes Eustace Huang in a way that we wouldn't have expected.
So that was one thing. Like, I'm like, I get it. I was talking to A about it actually, and he was like 7 and 8 are independently good to great episodes of TV, right? 7 will go down as one of the best of the year. But maybe having them back to back is not a smart choice.
Yeah.
Like maybe having 2 flashbacks, stroke context episodes is not a smart choice. It's not a smart thing to do. And those are the things that, like,
that's a fair point. That's something, that's somewhere I think I can agree because, you know, even going back to the reintegration thing, as we said, it didn't necessarily prove to be so consequential, at least not so much as to warrant any real payoff this season. And on some level, that's okay.
It felt like it was really, really hyped up. Obviously with Mugabe and staying because
people saw it as a destination rather than, you know, kind of a stop on the journey.
Yeah.
However, I think I would actually argue that while season 1 gives us a slight glimpse of the physical dangers of reintegration and its refusal to openly explore it, as well as, you know, season 1's refusal to explore reintegration on one hand, combined with like what we actually see happening to Petey, right? Those two things kind of tell us about the physical dangers of reintegration, whereas season 2 tries to get us to grapple with the emotional and psychological implications of reintegration. It's kind of like the implications to the self that's undertaking the process, which takes us again to Chikai Bardo. And while those two things feel fundamentally different to the viewer, as far as experiences go, they serve a real purpose because we're seeing on one side what could happen to Mark, but then we see what actually happens to Mark. They don't need to establish those physical dangers too much. Like they did, we saw like the concussions, the falling, you know, the sickness, all that stuff. But they also kind of explored what it would be doing to his mental state, you know, in a way that they didn't show with PD. And we get, hopefully, in the future, a chance to show what that will be doing to Mark S's point of view as well. And they're starting to kind of build that up. And I like that. I think that's a good use of reintegration in this current season. Like, because as we said, they've started it now. The show is still going to go on. So there's still so much that they can get out of reintegration as a plot device.
Yeah. I just think a throwaway line from Regabi, like being like, this takes 2 months or whatever, like just a way to let the audience know that this is not an instant thing I think would have actually helped a lot because, like you said, audience thought it was a destination and not like the journey because there was like reintegration. That's why we thought Heiser Place with 3. We thought it was like a season 3 thing. We thought like you do reintegration and we're in the end game now. We didn't know that Nana is like stop too. And I think the show could have like made it clear that this is not a quick thing. And not like the Hail Mary that you guys are waiting for. That's something that could have happened. Yeah.
On some level, it's like plausible deniability. I guess it's kind of like, you know, the show is making an assumption and is hoping that we make a similar assumption, and you know, then it can clarify things later. But I wonder if, for example, there were other points in the season where it's like, this assumption you're making, how accurate is it really? Like, for example, there are people asking questions like, does it truly make sense that Mark wouldn't have known that Helly wasn't Helly, right? If they were so close. And one that I also find myself asking, I know we kind of addressed this before, we addressed it from the points of view of, you know, Mark Scout, Devin, and Coel, but even from the point of Lumen, it's like, how could they be so bad at figuring out what was so important to Mark if he was so important to them and their plan? Like, how could they not realize that firing his team would be a danger to Cold Harbor, right?
Yeah.
Like that I feel on some level, that's not the show fumbling. I think that's the show trying to show us that these people don't actually think certain things through because they are arrogant.
Yeah, but I also don't think like 24 hours earlier, they wouldn't have mattered that much to Mark. Like, he saw his best friend go and he moved on. It's like, I guess maybe they didn't.
He didn't move on easily, but yes, you're right. He did eventually move on.
I think it all goes down to the hubris of Luma. I think they didn't realize how entrenched the like radical nature that had entered into these characters, where they
Exactly.
really loved these guys. And I
Yeah.
think they thought if he can move on from PT, then he will move on. Like he will kind of go ahead. And also to the thing, sorry, if someone trying to Chinedu today, I would not know. I just think Chinedu is moving weird. I'm like, maybe he's in a mood. I would not know that he's a different person. Like, what are you guys talking about? He also didn't know it was possible. Like, to him,
he didn't know that
his
was...
definition of if it's
Exactly.
spirit entering your body. He's like, he didn't know that was a thing.
And this is why I call it plausible deniability. Like, this is not something that would ever occur to him, because it's like, how could this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's literally not even, it's not a thing. And, you know, speaking of the team, right? Now that we have a better understanding of what Mark does as a refiner, right? What does the rest of the team do, right? This is
God
kind of
knows.
a debate that I was actually having this debate with my family regarding the show. And, you know, first of all, like, are there other people like Gemma? Were the other refiners, you know, Helly, Irving, Dylan, were they contributing to the work being done on Gemma? Maybe as support to Mark as, you know, the main refiner that's working on Gemma's consciousness? Or like, were they just placebos? Not like nothing was actually, they weren't actually doing anything. Like all of their work was going somewhere else. Or, and also, what does this mean for, you know, the other branches that were mentioned and the fact that they also have refiners? Like, taking all these possibilities into consideration, the Severance Season 2's narrative engine depend essentially entirely on Mark. And if it did, is that a good thing? Because does that then mean that everybody's situation was kind of secondary or borderline irrelevant? Like, because obviously this season had a more fragmented storyline, and that was the approach they took. But like, does this essentially mean that the other refiners have kind of it's just been vibes this whole time? They haven't actually been working on anything.
Lumen is big pharma, as we know. They do all sorts. Like, we've seen them with blood, in blood donation this season. We've seen, you know, them being involved in
painkillers.
They do, yeah. So they're
Helena
big
was
pharma.
like, she took a non-lumen painkiller.
Yeah, I mean, there will be so much you can do
Bandages
as a med tech. You can even call it that, like a med.
That
tech
is what
company.
they are. They're a med tech company.
Exactly.
Pfizer?
So,
in a sense,
I think they might be Pfizer. I can't think of anybody else.
They're kind of like Pfizer meets Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I cut you off.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, we don't know. We don't want to speculate. You know, that's something that's happened so much this season. Obviously, we've all been guilty, but I do think that there.
Yeah.
I do think that there are more
nothing wrong
people
in speculating. Sorry, it's just something we're talking about with Pete. It's when you let those speculations guide like your expectations and how you feel on things. So
you should not be evaluating a show based on headcanon.
Yeah, it's like, guys, it's your head. Anyway,
I do think there are more people like Gemma. It can't be just it's a war on pain. So, I mean, I think it's safe to insinuate from there that they're really actively going after this. And there's so much more that Luma wants to do. We know they're a cult. We know that they carry what Kier says, like Bible. So who else knows what else they've got in their locker? We've seen the goats as well. I don't think the goats are there just to kill them. So maybe Lumen is just that cruel.
I mean, hey.
So it's funny because before people even start asking this question, because we should shout out that MEK asked us this question directly. So I was just like, I was just like, oh yeah, like Dylan and Evan, they're just there just like to make it feel like a workplace, like placebo, like you said. But then I was thinking about it, maybe that doesn't make sense because everyone was there before. I do think probably other MDR branches were just like refining random people, like because I think they've done a Gemma before. But maybe Mark is the first time, or like in the first, but they're like, actually, maybe this person needs to know them intimately. Yeah. So I think Mark is probably the first person to kind of, which is probably why he's gone so far.
Yeah.
But I also don't think, like, if, for example, best case scenario, whatever you want to say, the rest of the MDR is doing fake shit. They're just like, you know, when you give the child in the car a fake steering wheel, basically, or like a pad that is not connected. Like, even if they're doing that, I don't think that invalidates their story. Like, whatever MDRA does not affect what Dylan went through this season. Like, come on.
That's a good
Like,
point. Yeah.
Like, their work, quote unquote, does not affect the fact that Dylan went through some shit this episode or that Irving is dead, essentially.
If anything,
Like-
doesn't it just stress how much more evil the company is, even?
Yeah.
Just to get
like you're
people
creating
there,
these
to just
people.
place them.
So, I mean,
War against pain, quote
Oh
unquote.
wait.
Yeah. War
Okay,
against
let me
real
keep
people's
quiet
pain.
on that.
NRPI, no real people involved, no real person involved.
Oh my god, man! Wow. I
Oh,
mean,
goodness.
well, with the Frank Benter storyline, right? I guess from a viewer perspective, did it work? Like, do we think that this made season 2 a more engaging viewing experience than season 1? Because there was
What
a
do
lot
you
good. Like,
mean by
Dylan
what
was
more
basically
engaging?
like siloed in a way. Like, all the main things that were happening for his own character development, nobody else saw. You know, Helly is kind of feeling alone in the office. Irving is basically not even in the office anymore before the halfway point of the season. So we kind of have to assume that all these things are serving a goal. Like, did that feel, how does that compare to the feeling of togetherness and camaraderie that drove season 1?
They couldn't be on the same page. From a story point of view, it's just impossible. You could not finish season 1 with all of them fighting this goal and then continue season 2 with them. Like,
yeah,
the story
like the
needs
paradigm has shifted. Yeah,
the story needs to break them up for us to even have a story. Like, because if they're all on the same page, then this season ends in episode 2, episode 3. Like, we get the job done. It's like, I keep referring to it. It's like, I remember when Kevin Feige was like, before we have Infinity War and we bring in our big bad, we have to have Civil War and break up the Avengers, because if the Avengers are all on the same page, the movie ends in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, so you kind of need to break them up so that when they come together at the finale and Dylan comes in and finally is on board with his teammates and he doesn't even know what's going on, he just sees that Hell is struggling and
so he pushes
the vending machine.
like,
that means something. That means something to me, man. Like, it's like Dylan has had this whole season of doing his own thing on the side, but then his siloedness, okay, it didn't kill Irvin, but like, it helped him not help Irvin, right? So he's like, no, again. And I think that means something in the finale when you can't just have them on the same page. It's just not possible. And then also, they have different goals. They have different wants. Like,
Yeah.
Dylan has a family, and like, I think we've all discussed, like, the Dylan thing makes sense from Dylan's point of view. You have to chase that. Like, you have to kind of do that. So, no, I think this was always the smart way to do this story. There's no other way you could have done it that it would have worked.
And I think, even to be honest, it just follows on naturally, because isn't the point of everything that he did in season 1 was to kind of see what the outside world is and to expose it to them. So there's no way you can have that interaction and come back the same. It's just not. We have to remember also, Dylan's entire storyline is because the OTC was activated for they could have just waited for him to come back to the office the next day. So,
I guess they were really scared for that Chikai Bardo card.
I mean, look, Seth is nothing. If nothing else, is an overachiever. He likes to.
So,
Seth,
I mean,
man,
there's
wow.
no way they could see their lives on the outside and come back the same. They still have that love for each other, but naturally, as human beings, there are priorities that you naturally gravitate to. They had no priorities. They had no self-worth. Again, which is another theme of this season. They had no, like, sense of what they want.
They had no love.
Exactly, they had no love. And now they've been exposed to that and they've seen that, and it's not. Even if the writers wanted to do it, it's just not possible for you to go there and you see your sister and your niece and this idol that is actually your brother-in-law. So you can't have
What a
that
shock.
and still be the same. And also, even discovering, your therapist is actually your dead wife, and like Dylan G as well. So yeah, I think it's just natural.
Yeah, I feel like we may need to evaluate on some level, or I suppose it would be unfair of us to not consider what good there might be to Lumen's plan. Like, what if what they are trying to do on some level has...
Is this a hear me out section? Is it be like,
No.
hey, let's hear Lumen out?
The devil's advocates.
Wait. Hold on, before they come for me, wait. I'm just trying to say, Okay.
What if the
Okay.
capitalist company is not
Yeah,
that
it's like-
bad, guys?
Okay,
you
look,
know,
no.
authors
I'm
of
just
hit
I'm trying to
pieces.
acknowledge that Dr.
Okay.
Maurer said something. He said something when they were going up and escaping. You'll kill them all. So it made me wonder, what really is Lumen trying to do? What is it that he feels they're taking away from the world by saving Gemma? So it's like, what if this is kind of like their means are absolutely terrible and evil, but on some level is the kind of thing that the world may justify in 100 years? Like, it even makes me wonder, like, can Lumen even be ended? Like, this is like a too big to fail kind of organization. Like, are the characters in this show, and we by extension, okay with the life of every Innie in the world being extinguished? So it's like, I wonder, like, okay, is that the you'll kill them all that he's talking about? Is it the Innies? But I can't imagine Maurer cares about the Innies. So what is it? That's essentially what I'm asking. Like, what if there is some good to Lumen's plan that we don't know about?
I mean, one thing I would say is he could be right. He could be saying the truth. But then he's also a pathological liar, and almost every line that came out of
Bro.
his mouth was a dirty lie.
I think
throughout
pathological
the
is
show.
proving this is putting it mildly, man. Think about what this guy does every day for a living.
So I wouldn't
Just an
take his
actor,
words
guys.
with a pinch of salt.
They get to the craft.
Like, is he even a
fun-
doctor? He's just an actor. Like, bro.
Oh, let's
So, but
let's
I think you have
crucify
a
the
great.
actor that was dedicated.
Bro, look, I'm just saying, like, the man has range, and I commend it.
I think you have a great point, though, that maybe he could have meant that you kill all the Innies. That's a very good shout. So it's possible.
I thought, again, it's one of those things that I didn't really consider that much until you see like what everybody's thinking about. And I just thought he meant like Gemma's 25 Innies. Because I thought to him, it was like, I thought it was very culty of him. It was like, no, there's a way we're meant to do this. There's a way we're meant to end her life, quote unquote, that works towards our goal.
Yeah.
Or what you're doing is kind of killing them. Or I could be wrong. Again, I didn't think it was a deep, but I do think he was serious. I don't think he was lying, because that seemed like he was.
Yeah, he was definitely
him-
concerned about
I
something.
remember him running down the hall, and he's like, call German. And she's like, it's the fucking spouse.
Yo, that scene, it
Sandra
feels so
Bernhard.
it feels so video gamey. I'm telling you, it.
No, because
like-
even with the gun pointing at, she's like, ah.
Bro,
Step off,
she just
fuck.
jumps out of nowhere. I'm telling you, that feels like you will see it in the video game cutscene, bro.
Yo, I'm telling you, like, you know, I feel like I wondered earlier in the season, like during episode 7, like when Gemma is in these rooms, does she just stand outside the whole time? And this is confirmation
like-
that she does.
I promise you, I promise you, she can't. That one take she did, I don't think she can get it like that again.
Oh, bro. Oh my god. I one thing my brother actually commented on when I watched the episode again with my family, right? He's like, he said he really appreciates, right? He really appreciates the fact that Maurer is actually sprinting. Like everybody else in this show. they're
Also,
dilly-dally.
can we talk
Yo,
about
this
his
guy-
running style, please? Why is he running like that?
Yo, he's running like he can't lift his body.
I love-
I'm like,
I mean, I think there are two things I want to appreciate. First, I want to appreciate Ben Stiller, obviously, for obvious reasons. But I think the fact that you have Ben Stiller directing Severance means that there's a 90% chance that like the comedic set pieces are going to work. Because that's his bread and butter. So,
like that's not even the thing that's supposed to be funny. Like that's a very
when you
heavy
get
moment.
Robbie,
Robbie,
Robbie Benson
funny.
and Sandra Bernhard, who are established comedic and dramatic actors
Yeah.
for decades, literally. Like it's like, yeah, let's be funny here. It's like what I want to appreciate. I appreciate you guys. Because if I was the one covering Severance, it would have been a much worse coverage. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because the way
Oh, nice.
anyone that listens to White Lotus and even Yellow Jackets, you kind of know how my brain works watching TV. I might go theory, but like I go like 5 feet. So like it's have been a much. I'd have been like, yeah, that's what he meant. Let's move on. I wouldn't have even put it in my notes because I just take it at face value, essentially. So like I love the fact that you guys were able to go in depth all season and actually think about theories and stuff. Because I was just like, man, if it was me, let's talk about the Gemma and Mark relationship. Let's talk about that. Let's spend 50 talking about that. Let's not talk about what Cold Harbor means because I don't care. So, but yeah, I just want to shout you guys. Thank you for your coverage. Thank you for your service.
No
Hey
worries.
man,
It was all
we
like
did the
Ebube.
best we could. We did the best we could. And even regarding the meaning of Cold Harbor, it's like it's almost as if, like I said, they want to see all the different scenarios that Severance could be useful for people that they sell it to. But I suppose for them, the final test is this notion that like the deepest trauma somebody could ever feel is something that doesn't transcend the barrier. Like, but I feel like that's why Jay Megan was so like annoyed and why he was shouting, because it wasn't even like, oh, they're taking Gemma away. It's literally just the fact that she still feels comfortable enough to go with this man that she should not know. So that means something that doesn't work. So it's like Mark has essentially undone a lot of that stuff. And, thinking about this idea of severance, who is actually severed, how many innies somebody can have.
25.
I started thinking about Irving again, because I started thinking about Bert again, and I wondered, how deep do Bert's lies go? Do we think there's actually a chance that Bert is not severed at all?
That's one thing I really wanted out of this season. A lot of people
Like, he's
said,
just pretending. He's the same guy in both places.
That dinner scene was so good. I wanted more of just that trio. That trio, sorry. I wanted more of them. I wanted more out of the relationship between Bert and Irving. Personally, anyways. I just thought that there was so much good work that could have been done with that. That's one of the things I would have liked from this season. If we think Bert is severed at all, I've thought about that question several
I'm
times.
literally just remembering, when like Bert's retirement party, right? When Irving stumbles onto it, like he doesn't even realize that's what he's about to stumble upon, but he stumbles upon it. And, he gets so annoyed. He looks at Milchick and he's like yelling at the guy. He's like, you get to go home with your memories. You're not severed. But the camera cuts to Bert when he says that. And I was thinking about that again. I'm just like, yo, what can I, like, I'm trying to evaluate everything Bert has ever said or done. And I'm like, how many of these things would still make sense if he wasn't severed? And there's like a very uncomfortable amount of things that still make sense if he wasn't severed.
So I watched 6 with Chinedu. That was was that the dinner episode?
Yes.
Fields?
Yes.
I believe
that was
so,
6.
Yeah.
And I think Chinedu remembers I was like firmly like Bert was not severed. That was like my first takeaway. Like I told him, I was like, Bert was not severed.
Not even
But
Bert has been working at Lumen for longer than he says. Because that's another thing, like the timelines don't add up. Like he said,
that one was, I think we took that one for granted. That was like
20 years. He said, oh, but Severance started 13 years ago. Oh, but 10 years. But inside Lumen is like, oh, I've been here in O&D for 7 years. Like the numbers literally do not match anywhere.
Yeah, we took it for the fact that Fields was not lying and he wasn't that drunk. Or he was drunk, but like he wasn't lying. But I do think the show is being very, or at least wants us to believe that they're very honest in episode 9. I think everything that happens in the train station is very earnest and very true. I don't think there's an extra reveal there. I think the show is like saying that no, this is like Bert is telling the truth. Yeah, he was a goon. He did go there to say he's so good to Harvard. He is like sacrificing his career and his life to get this person that he's Innie loved out. I think that's what the show is saying there.
Yeah,
it would be a very like, I don't know what the word is, harsh, betrayal. It would be a very strong turn to be like, no, he was lying. Because like that scene is played very, very straight and very romantic and very earnest.
I get what you mean. There's it's kind of the same with the Mark and Gemma like final scene where this is kind of like there's no extra reveal here, with the Helena and Helly. There's no extra reveal here.
Exactly.
If there's anything,
too much.
If there's anything to unpack there, I think it's just Irving's life. I don't think it's Bert's. And I do think his Bert's husband was played. Is his husband, right? Yeah, Bert's husband was played very honestly. I think he was honest throughout that entire episode. That's what my take of the character was, at least. Just from the interactions and the mannerisms, you could tell that this was a character that wasn't lying. So he wouldn't He clearly
Yeah,
wasn't lying
it's-
about his husband being severed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because why would
I
he?
remember my takeaway from the finale was just like I didn't realize that, because I think we discussed it in Pete's live stream, last reference to the live stream. Is like I didn't know that the show was this sentimental and this
Mhm.
romantic. Like I thought if they were like, if it's a much darker show, they do things differently, right? But this is a show that seemed to kind of really put the earnestness up top. And obviously I'm sure dark things will happen. Dark things have already happened, but like it's like to really kind of destroy those moments, the Mark and Helly and Gemma moment, and then the Bert and Irving moment. Even though it didn't really work for me, like I've said before. Like it's like I fell in love with the Innie and Innie Bert Innie Irving relationship. I don't care about these two people, but the show wants you to care about them, and I think to then come back next season, a year and a half later, and be like, nah, Bert was lying. It's too. It's just not.
It's almost cartoony.
Also, the
Yeah,
creators,
it's
the
very
creators have
harsh
spoken so
storytelling.
much. Sorry, the creators have spoken so much about love transcending Severance, and they are another symbol of it again. So
Yeah. It's too, to be like Bert was lying all that time. It's just like, well, like it's literally you're kicking your audience, like you're
like a
spitting on them
gimmick.
and kicking them when they're on the ground. Just like,
It's like
come
a
on,
gimmick.
like like haba. So I do think I think Bert in that point, I think everything he told us is true. He was a goon, then he got severed so that he could go to heaven, or at least a version of him could go to heaven. But then he was intrigued by his Innie, fall in love with this Innie. Or maybe, what do you think?
What do I think in terms of like if Bert was earnest?
Like, do you think it was earnest, or do you think he was also never severed? Like, where did you fall at the end of the season?
I think I'm still in the camp that Bert was severed, just maybe a bit longer than he wants us to believe.
Oh, I think we're all agreed on that.
Yeah.
I think
so. I do think he was severed, and I think that the version of him that loved Irving was probably, an Innie rather than, the same guy or anything like that. Because, but one thing that kind of attacks that for me is he was retired, right? So how does he know he was fired?
No, but they said they told him now.
So they told him.
They said that, okay, so you're trying to, at least this is the way I initially saw it, was that they told the Innie, your outie is retiring, but they told the outie, we are firing you, type of thing.
No, but maybe he wasn't even fired.
Wait,
this doesn't invalidate anything.
Because he said that he was fired. He said like, oh, my Innie was fired for having, a romantic connection with somebody.
During the dinner, Bert is still working for Lumen.
No.
You think so?
No,
he's not. No, he's not.
If anything, as a goon, perhaps,
but
not as the head of O&D.
No, that's what I mean. No. Outie Bert is still working for Lumen during that dinner.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, true. Okay.
Yeah, that's why Drummond is able to get into the house, because Drummond knows when he's not going to be there. That's why Helena tells her dad, we're taking care of
him, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he definitely, so he's still a goon. He's just an old man goon now, but he's not like the head of O&D anymore.
No. He was meant to kill Irvin.
Yeah, so that kind of confirms my original position. Yeah, I do feel like he was in fact severed.
Yeah.
I mean, if it turns out that he wasn't, then that's kind of interesting. I want to see how they kind of explain that.
It's not. I don't like that as a plot development. But I think no. Just to be clear, I do think Helena or whoever or Drummond is like, okay, you need to take care of Irvin. So that's why he breaks into his house. He's meant to drive him off and kill him, but then he rises. So which is maybe. It would be so weird to me if we never see Totoro walking back. Obviously, people are like, maybe Totoro wanted it out. But I'm just like, there's still so many strands that, I mean, they could be
I don't see him
out.
not coming back. Like, he's definitely gonna, like, what? I don't think.
I
guess they could, because there's still unanswered questions. We still need to know who he was talking to on the phone, unless they tell us a different way.
But they could be answered without him.
They could be, yeah, true.
Like, all you need for someone to be like, I was talking to him on the phone. Like, it doesn't, like, I was talking to, like, he doesn't need to be there to answer those questions.
That's fair. I mean, but it could still be foreshadowing. Like, and we got like a bunch of things that could just be weird foreshadowing. For example, will Mark ever actually meet James Egan? Like, was that scene in episode 6 even more foreshadowing than we initially perceived? Like, maybe he wants to meet him the same way he wants to elevate Helly. When Helena and Mark meet at the Chinese restaurant. And she's like, yo, you should come home and meet my father. I'm just like, okay.
do they need to meet? J-Man? That was something
I don't think they need to meet, but I do wonder what outie Mark would say to him. especially now that, you know, he's met Helena in that restaurant, now that he's tried to break Gemma out, now that all these things have happened, like, what would that
Say to
relationship,
him,
what
won't
would
he
that
attack
dynamic
him
feel
first?
like?
This is you assuming that Innie Mark lets Outie Mark leave
Exactly.
Lumen.
Yeah,
We're
no,
here
literally,
now, boy.
there are
This
people
is
who
our
wonder
new
if
home.
like they're just going to like essentially have him killed or whatever. And also they could even have him locked up or provide him with, you know, an ultimatum that says, you know, it's this or that, because technically on paper he's the one that killed Drummond, right? So one of their people has died. And it's like they need someone to go down for that, and they could they could lord that over him. At the same time, they may not do that, because revealing that Drummond was killed could then lead to them revealing what they're actually doing, which they would definitely not do. So it's a double-edged sword for everyone involved.
I can't remember the last time I was this intrigued about where a show was going. Maybe
Same.
even like Succession season 2 finale, I kind of had an idea of where season 3 could go, because this is just like, this is a prison break ending. Like, well, not prison break, it's a prison riot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anyone who's watched any show that had the prison riot, this is how the season ends, and then the next season, because this is right now the inmates are in charge, but there is a futility to it, because there's only so far you can go. All they need to do is make a call, and then they get to new workers and get to new workforce. Like, the guards, like, the inmates outnumber the guards in a prison, but all you need to do is make a few more calls, and then, like, you lose that advantage, because then they get all the guns. Maybe you have one gun, but then they have all the guns. Like, it's like, so it's like, how much more can you do beyond? I just don't know. I actually don't know. Like,
I think
it's interesting.
One thing I was going to say is I love how many pockets the show can get into, man. Like, we've talked about how funny it is. Season 1, the conversation would have been so different if we're, you know, if we're doing the podcast now. And we're talking about love. I don't think we spoke about love so much in season 1, and the way they've executed it beautifully from such a dark show in season 1 till now. Like, I think, it's very intriguing, like, where it goes from here, because you can't even speculate, really.
I can't. I have like, and it's like, again, I think that ending is not meant to be everything is fine ending. It's like, everything is fine. ... Actually, no, it's not. It's like they are just happy to be together, and they're like, wait, no, we are. God, what are we? What are we doing? Actually, what's next? Like, what do we do? Like, we have Milchick outnumbered, but like, what's going to happen?
Milchick still has all the power.
It's a thing. I'm just like, I don't actually know. I'm just like, again, as always, my fatal flaw is that I trust in creators until they let me down. So I'm just like, I believe in them. They know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So it's very intriguing. I'm just like, I'm sorry. Just before I know my rapper. I need to shout out like some of the scenes I just loved, and obviously I don't want to rehash what you guys did last episode, but like,
no, please.
Dylan and Dylan
we actually want to hear what you think of them. You're the new voice here, so
the Dylan and Dylan scene was just. I was just like, again, the way they cut that with the editing and seeing Gretchen and like what Dylan is saying, and
it felt like
someone who's been
invested.
Someone who's been invested in the Dylan Gretchen plotline all season. I love that.
Was that your favorite storyline?
I don't know if it was my favorite, but like, it's one that you could easily be like, I don't care about this, but I always cared about it, and I always like understood even if I didn't agree, I always understood everyone's reason for doing what they were doing in that triangle. Like, I can understand why Gretchen would be attracted to an earlier version of her husband. Like, it's not the smart thing to do. And if she had one conversation with one real person, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Well, you can't do this. But I can understand why she would do that.
But the only real person she could talk to was her husband.
And she told her. And then he threw the smoothie in the sink. And then, like, oh god, the Mark and Helly equator conversation, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was so good.
Like, if I was like, I don't know what. It's like their face, man. Obviously, they can't look at each other, and I even just like when Adam Scott, his voice is cracky, and he says the line, "But I want to live with you."
Yeah,
and I'm just like, bro, just like their eyes, tears.
Performance is dialed to 11. Like, it was
like, this is
amazing,
incredible, man, gosh. Incredible. I think we talked about it in the last episode as well. Like
it was so good. It was like, so I couldn't like just. The way everything, obviously directing, the way it's lit, and like you can only really see their faces, but like
how his face goes from gloom to smile to gloom, like,
and when she stands beside him, and then like their faces are there, and like he's signing their death warrant in that moment by finishing the file. And like even the fact that she says at least it's a happy one, that was interesting to me because I don't think we knew that other people could feel what the refiner was feeling with the numbers. I thought it was a personal
I think
thing.
It's either
I think
that
they
or she
could.
can see it on the screen because they now know of the buckets and like he put that one into Frolic, I think.
Oh, okay.
No,
I
I think
thought it
they
was
could
half
because
feeling the numbers.
that's how they always train them though. Like
Yeah,
remember when they were
as long
training
as she's
heavy?
looking at the screen, she would feel
can
that
feel the
happiness too.
numbers.
Yeah.
But even just like, because my head, and I was just like, if I was right, because I didn't understand, I was like, if I was writing this scene, what would I do here? And I was like, oh, I think at one point I'll just have Mark kind of break out and go and kiss her. But they couldn't do that because he had to have his own revolution moment at the end of the episode when he goes to her. So I was like, how do you show the connection in this scene? And then when she obviously walks to him and she's looking at the screen beside him, and then just that shot. So, yeah, I was like, this is like, if just a great scene, man. Like, yeah. And then obviously Milchek is just like C&M, just like sure. Like,
amazing.
Okay. It's one of those things where I was like,
do you want to tell the audience about the conversation that we had?
Okay, I don't mind saying it. Look, he can remove it if he wants. I think Milchek is a man who, first of all, his fits are always insane. This man knows how to dress. And then
he's a black man in corporate. He has to know how to dress.
Yeah, but he's also a man who never shies away from doing the extravagant. Well, by the way, this is not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, how many pride parades has Milchek been to? I just feel like there is no, like, it's so clear that this is a man who knows the finer things in life. He knows how to. This man, he knows how to enjoy himself. That's what I'm saying. That this is a man that.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying. Let's go home and see Milchek's husband. That's all I'm asking. I just feel like this guy's life is a very colorful, entertaining life.
Just like saw like 5 seconds ago when I clocked what you were saying before you said it.
Banky saw the tease in the Oddball episode and said, nope.
I'm like, no straight man has this fits. No straight man can pull off these routines as well as this guy does. I'm just sorry. Speaking as for all straight men, we just don't have it. Do you see what he's wearing at the Oddball? Like, we can't pull that off. I'm sorry.
Hashtag drip.
Yeah, it's just like do you see his dance with the C&M? I was speaking for all straight men. We just don't have it in us. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Let's give the credit where the credit is due.
Okay.
And I know one's going to hear that because Chinedu is going to cut all of that out. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think he will.
Three straight men are not talking about that.
Nothing but praise.
We are here apparently. Yeah. So I guess before we go, Severance is...
Sorry, hold on. Just to stay on that point. If you told Ben Stiller and Shabelle Tillman, like, so we have a podcast where 3 black men were talking about whether Milchek was gay. Do you want to listen to it? How toxic do you think they think our conversation was? They was like, how can we get them out? How can we snipe them out? But no, we are wholesome.
We are wholesome. And this actually even leads into what I want to say before we go. As we said before, Severance is essentially required viewing at this point. It's a seminal story, something with real identity that has something to say and is brave enough to actually explore its premise to its limits. I feel like this show can only exist on something like Apple TV Plus, right? So I guess...
Now this is they're going to snipe us. Just go ahead. Go ahead. This is the real problem.
Should we briefly just kind of talk about the impact of this show and the current state of TV viewership and fandom? Because like, how did we get here? Like, is this all because of the Easter egg people on the internet? Could a show like this, for example, thrive in the way that it does if something like Game of Thrones or Lost that trained people to look for crazy details never existed? I think it could, because as you said, somebody who doesn't literally go into any of that noise, just watches the show. But at the same time, I feel like it thrives in the environment that it does, kind of because of the world that we've created.
It's funny though. It's a show that highlights a cult that you see cults outside the show following the show as well. So
no,
ironic.
I mean, I think just to that point, Julia Louis-Dreyfus used to tell this story about how she was saying a Maya on Veep, and she was like how Republicans would come to her and be like, oh, you got the Democrats so right. And Democrats come to her and be like, oh, you got the Republicans so right. So like, they never know when it's there.
Oh my God.
No, I think it's like no. There's a reason Lost is the father of this, right? There's a reason like House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones is going to be the father of fantasy shows. It's just like, even if those guys, like I said, that don't go on Reddit, like they are still watching it because TV has trained them that way, right? Even if they're not doing all the work that we are doing, I think as much as I might slag the TikTok shippers or whatever, that's just me being an old man. Like, we need them in this ecosystem. Like, we in a world where there is no water cooler show, or rather there's no like one singular show, we kind of need those guys to push our shows. Like, I need them to make their edits about Yasmin and Harper, because I need industry to make seasons. So we kind of need them in there, because they do a pivotal role.
Oh my God.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, what I think this might be, maybe Leftovers. I'm trying to think if this is this is probably bigger than Leftovers, because Leftovers was a very kind of niche show, even though it was on HBO. I can't think of another mystery box show that was, I think this might be right now the biggest mystery box show since Lost.
Perhaps, yeah.
I can't think of any other one that like kind of didn't peter after the first season. So no, I think it's what is TV? We don't know what TV is, man. TV is gone are the days of having one TV show that everybody was talking about. Now it's just trying to find your community.
Yeah.
And like following the TikTok channels and TikTok trends.
I mean, one thing I'll say is I hated how people talked about the finale. One side was so deep into, the hypotheticals. The other side thought they were so smart that the people doing the hypotheticals are so dumb. Like, all of a sudden, this watching Severance is like listening to a J. Cole album now. Yeah, you need to be some kind of intellectual to be able to.
Oh God!
People were making tweets like, "Oh, they need to leave the show for us and go watch their dumb show." Oh, jeez, relax. You're not watching like quantum physics.
I agree with you, but I also think sometimes gatekeeping is necessary. Anyway, sorry.
Gatekeep, but don't insult people's intelligence, because you're not that smart either.
Oh God. Okay, so I guess final thing, rapid fire. There've been quite a few pivotal moments on this show so far, including all the stuff we got in season 1. So what will you guys say is the biggest or most game-changing thing that happened? Like a moment where you knew the stakes were real, or like the show really earned its place at the top of your mind. Like some examples to help with this.
Quick fire.
What do you say?
Oh, I said quick fire. Oh, sorry, you were going to give
quick fire. Yeah, like so. Well, first of all, what comes to mind? I guess
Irving literally shoving Helena into the water. That was crazy, bro.
That's okay. So is that the moment where you knew that this show was like,
I was sat.
This show?
And you know what? You know what kills me about that episode? They finished cooking that thing, then they played some laddie down music after.
Oh my God. Okay. Bankole, what you got?
I don't know. So game changing was at the time the integration at the end of episode 3. Like we said, at that point where like, this is it. You've changed the course of TV viewing for the next decade. Obviously, we're wrong.
It can be stuff. I mean, so like some examples, right? The beginning, like when you just knew, like, oh my God, this stuff is going to get crazy. Like, for example, Helly is an Egan, or Miss Casey is Mark's wife. Like game changing for the story, or even. Obviously, we talk about the Helena.
Are we talking about season 1?
Yeah. Even I said including season 1. Like just a moment in the show where you knew that, like, okay, this show is insane. I need to keep watching this show. Like, or even like for some people, we would even say like
finale shouldn't count.
101, where we find out that Selvig is Coel. Like that's something that's enough to kind of keep people going.
That one is fine. If you've watched enough cult or spy shows, that one is fine. I think it's like the first one is the Gemma.
Severance.
Yeah, the first one is the Gemma. Is Miss Casey one, but like it
in 107 at the end of 107 when they revealed that Gemma is Miss Casey, that's
but then it kept on coming because Helly's and Egan was like, I was like, what are you talking about? Like what are we doing? So like it was one of those things that like, but let me change your question. The moment I knew, I'm locked in for season 1, season 2, basic answer was the start of season 2. Like that run, I was like, okay, we're in. I was like, fine, that's fine, just go ahead. Like I was just like, I give you, because I didn't watch, because they released the 8th, I didn't really watch it. I watched it when we were watching the show, so I was like, okay, I gave you all my worries, just go ahead and go do your thing. So let me just go with that. That was the moment, and I was like, I'm locked in.
Okay, good. I think one thing that really just made my heart beat a bit faster was in that season 1 finale when Mark is talking to Coel, and instead of
Coel?
saying Miss Selvig, he says, "Thanks, Miss Coel," and I was like, Jesus
Wait,
Christ.
sorry, he said what? Sorry.
He said that
Thanks,
he called
Miss
when he
Coel.
accidentally called her Miss Coel
Oh my
instead of
goodness.
Miss Selvig,
I
and that's
almost
how
fell
she
down
knew
from
the
my
outie
chair,
was
man.
happening. I was like,
Jesus.
yo, like that kept me awake. But anyway, thanks so much, guys. This has been fun.
Thank you for having me, allowing me get on my soapbox.
No, please. Welcome anytime. We have really enjoyed covering this season. Thank you all so much for listening. Please go listen to everything else we're covering. We're still covering The White Lotus, which is hurtling towards an insane end. We're covering
An
the Yellow
incest
Jackets
end.
as
You said
well.
incest end? Is that what you said?
Insane end. Insane end. What are you doing? Do anything is possible at this point. We're covering Yellow Jackets. We've covered Invincible as well. And of course, if you're new here and you're wondering what we thought of anything that happened in Severance Season 2, we have all of that right here on this feed for you. And we have a lot more coming down the pipeline as well. So thank you again, and we will see you soon.
I was just gonna say, if they're going to, if they're wondering if they should watch White Lotus, please just literally, there's just that Asian girl scene, please. If there's anything that's going to make you watch
This
show,
is not
please.
the place to talk about Rockwell, but
Oh,
yeah, let's just
gosh.
leave it at that.
Oh
Bye,
no,
people.
but yeah,
See
thank
you
you so
soon.
much.
Thanks, everyone.